No two sets of characters define the word misfits more than Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxy and DC's Suicide Squad. Both teams have made their way to the big screen, in the MCU and DCEU respectively, with extremely mixed results. But which of these two comic book movie teams could win if they ever came to blows? In this video, that's exactly what we'll be discussing. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button. It's the best way of keeping up to date with all of ScreenRant's fantastic new videos. In recent weeks, following his sacking by Disney after controversial historic tweets were brought to light by Mike Cernovich, James Gunn has been linked with taking the directorial seat in DC's Suicide Squad sequel/reboot, much to the delight of anybody with a heart. Seriously, Disney, what on earth are you thinking? This made us wonder, who would win if the Guardians of the Galaxy and the Suicide Squad were to duke it out with each other on the battlefield? Guardians star Dave Bautista has suggested that he'd be prepared to follow Gunn to the DCEU and potentially play Bane in the franchise. And while we can't say what would happen if Bautista's Drax was to go up against a hypothetical version of Bane, we can look at the feats of the two teams of Marvel and DC misfits in order to determine a victor in the event of a fight between them. First of all, we have to determine the respective rosters of the two movie versions of the teams, and regardless of whether they're currently dead or alive. We'll be utilizing what we believe to be the classic rosters. Let's be honest, after Avengers Infinity War, if we weren't allowed to use characters who were currently dead, the Guardians would be up a creek without a paddle. Poor Rocket would have his work cut out for him all on his own. For the Guardians, we're including Star-Lord, Gamora, Rocket, Groot, Drax, and Mantis. And for the Suicide Squad, we're including Deadshot, Harley Quinn, Killer Croc, Captain Boomerang, El Diablo, Slipknot, Katana, and Field Team Leader Rick Flag, which gives them the number advantage at least. We could potentially have included Yondu and Nebula in the Guardians' ranks, but they never truly joined the team, while Enchantress escaped Amanda Waller's clutches and attempted to take over the world, prompting the Suicide Squad to face off against her before she could ever join them, so we won't be including her either. One of the most important aspects of any team is, of course, the relationship between its members. If they all get along and are on the same page, they tend to work better as a collective, and the Guardians of the Galaxy definitely have the upper hand in that regard. The Marvel team had a rocky start to life as a team, but they went on to effectively become a family, living together, working together, and looking out for one another on a daily basis out of Star-Lord's ship, the Milano, and later the Benatar. And they've overcome some pretty harsh odds, defeating the likes of a Power Stone-empowered Ronin and Star-Lord's father, the planet-sized celestial being Ego. While the Suicide Squad did ultimately learn to work as a team in order to defeat the Enchantress, Incubus, and the Eyes of the Adversary, their days are spent in separate cells, and their early days as a team saw them spend most of their time bickering like school kids with each other. And even after proving themselves capable of working together, the fact is they're still career criminals, so they could turn on each other at a moment's notice. Their relationship is extremely unpredictable and volatile. But how do the team's powers and abilities compare? In terms of physical strength, the Guardians of the Galaxy have it in abundance. While Star-Lord, Rocket, and Mantis lack super strength, Groot regularly ragdolls his opponents like the Hulk does. Drax is something of a physical beast, and Gamora was able to lift a huge gun that broke off of Nebula's ship in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. The Suicide Squad's members lack super strength in their ranks, apart from Killer Croc, who is only moderately superhuman, and El Diablo in his fiery form, as he was able to tussle relatively equally with the godly Incubus for a brief time. However, thanks mostly to Groot, who many people would like to see get into an altercation with the Hulk, as well as having a larger number of characters with strength of the super variety, we have to give the strength advantage to the Guardians. In terms of physical durability, that being how much physical damage each team can take, that's another tick in the Guardians box. Star-Lord, Drax, Gamora, and Rocket all proved they could take a severe pummeling when they fought that gigantic obelisk at the start of Guardians 2. Drax is probably the most durable of those guys. He got slammed into a metal door by Ronin in the first movie and was dragged violently by the Guardian ship when it crash-landed in the second, the latter of which he actually seemed to enjoy. Groot, however, is arguably the most durable member of the team, being made of a hard wood-like material, and he's able to grow any parts back that are damaged anyway. Even Mantis was proven to be incredibly durable when a large chunk of debris landed on her, and it didn't kill her. You know, when Drax tried to warn her after it happened. Suicide Squad are mostly ordinary humans, which makes their durability the same as any other Earth-based bag of flesh. But Killer Croc and El Diablo, in his fiery form at least, do have an increased ability to take damage. In Killer Croc's case, he has a hide similar to a crocodile, so he can essentially take the same amount of damage as one of the large aquatic reptiles, which isn't that much more than a human, all things considered. El Diablo is capable of taking more physical damage in his fiery form, as he was able to tank blows from Incubus, and of course, he's definitely able to withstand higher levels of heat. Unfortunately, it's simply not on par with the Guardians. In terms of super speed, neither team really possesses any of note, but if there's one character who has the speed, nimbleness, and agility to outmaneuver his opponents better than anyone else present in this fight, it's definitely Rocket. So we've got to give a slight edge to the Guardians here as well. A key component to any superhero fight is always which esoteric powers are available to the participants. The more complex, intricate powers that are generally unique to a small number of characters in the fight, and that's definitely going to be important in this particular battle. If Star-Lord still had access to his celestial powers, this one would be over before it started. But he doesn't. So it isn't. Star-Lord, Gamora, Rocket, Groot, and Drax lack the powers of an esoteric nature, but one character who certainly possesses an important power is Mantis. While her ability to sense, experience, and alter a person's emotions wouldn't be of much use against the Suicide Squad, her sleep inducement powers potentially could be. She'd have to get in close, which could be difficult for her without the aid of Doctor Strange's portals, which were needed to get her on top of Thanos in Avengers Infinity War. But if she was able to do that, putting her opponents to sleep could give her team the win by default. The Suicide Squad have a very powerful character in El Diablo, who has an extremely useful esoteric superpower in the form of pyrokinesis. El Diablo can generate and manipulate fire in a variety of useful ways, a power that is amplified when he transforms into his flaming avatar form. This would certainly be useful against the Guardians of the Galaxy. You have to think that bombarding the team with fire would hurt every single one of them to various degrees, especially the likes of the wooden Groot, the furry Rocket, and the part-human Star-Lord. Other than that, the only powers that could be described as anything close to esoteric in the Suicide Squad's ranks are Killer Croc's acute senses and Katana's sword's abilities to slice through almost anything and store the souls of its victims, none of which are overly useful given the level of opposition here. In the world of comic book superheroes and villains, two of the great levelers in the absence of superpowers are skills and intelligence. Just ask Black Widow and Hawkeye, who are able to fight in battles alongside the likes of Thor and the Hulk, in spite of the fact that they're ordinary humans, while Tony Stark wouldn't even be Iron Man without his genius ability to build his amazing armors. And there would be plenty of skill and intelligence on show if the Guardians of the Galaxy were to go up against the Suicide Squad. Star-Lord, Gamora, Groot, and Drax are all capable fighters, with Gamora demonstrating some serious skill in that regard, given that she's a trained assassin, but they don't really have any other specific skills that are useful in combat. Star-Lord is a renowned outlaw and thief, but that's pretty much irrelevant in battle. Rocket, however, could be very important in that regard. He's a tech genius who can both create and use weapons and gadgets far in advance of anything we have on Earth. For example, with preparation, he could build a weapon capable of destroying a moon that could kill off the entire Suicide Squad, if he had the time to prepare for the fight. The Suicide Squad, however, have an abundance of skills that help to somewhat make up for their lack of superhuman powers. Although whether or not they're all useful in an actual fight is open to debate, stealing things won't be particularly helpful, for example. Deadshot certainly has a useful skill, that being perfect aim with almost any ranged weapon, which could come in handy against the Guardians. Captain Boomerang also offers some ranged attacks in the form of his skilled boomerang throwing. His bladed and trick boomerangs could be very useful. Oh, and Slipknot is a rope and knot expert who's also skilled at rope climbing, and that could be, well, absolutely useless to be honest. There are, however, a number of genuinely skilled fighters in the team, most notably Katana, who is a master samurai with a variety of martial arts at her disposal, and nobody would exactly enjoy being smacked upside the head with Harley Quinn's baseball bat while she acrobatically bounced around them. All of this combined with Mick Flagg's leadership abilities certainly make the Suicide Squad formidable opponents. But is it enough to defeat the Guardians of the Galaxy? Honestly, our conclusion is that no, it isn't. The Guardians of the Galaxy would win this battle rather comfortably. The space-based superheroes have far more raw strength, wider variety of superhuman powers and far superior technology at their disposal. They'd simply be too much for the team of criminals otherwise known as Task Force X. Now that we've come to that conclusion, let's have a little fun imagining how the two teams might interact with each other before the meeting comes to blows. For starters, the Suicide Squad would be seeing green aliens, a talking raccoon, a walking tree, and a bug lady for the first time. It would be something of a shock for them, and their reactions would undoubtedly be hilarious. Harley Quinn would probably try to pet Rocket, and we all know what happens when people try to do that. But you have to imagine that Harley would also try to seduce Star-Lord, and it would probably work, given that a lot of the thinking Peter Quill does isn't carried out with his brain, much to Gamora's dismay and disappointment. Speaking of Gamora, it's hard to believe that she wouldn't attract the unwanted attention of at least one of the Suicide Squad's members, Captain Boomerang perhaps, and she'd no doubt be disgusted by the idea of being the object of his affections, and proceed to kick his butt accordingly. Drax might make the assumption that Killer Croc is the same species as him, and think that his scales are actually tattoos, and without any irony whatsoever, he might try to compare his body art with that of the Suicide Squad member. Rocket would almost certainly try to buy some of the Suicide Squad's equipment, possibly Deadshot's high-tech eye patch or his guns, for example. And if his offer was turned down, he'd probably just try to steal it all while they were asleep, then hide the evidence from the majority of his teammates. And the Suicide Squad would undoubtedly be confused by Groot's limited vocabulary, with the likes of Captain Boomerang in particular likely to grow tired of it very quickly. As for Mantis, she'd probably just laugh along awkwardly with everyone and say a bunch of stupid stuff, like how the Guardians were ready to kick names and take ass. A meeting between the two teams would certainly be interesting for a number of reasons, and it would be a dream come true for most comic book fans to see them interact, kind of like how it would be to see the MCU Avengers interacting with the DCEU Justice League. Unfortunately, if we're being totally honest with ourselves about it, it's about as likely to happen as Groot reciting the complete works of Shakespeare in perfect English. Who do you think would win if the Guardians of the Galaxy went toe-to-toe with the Suicide Squad? Leave a comment to get the debate going. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to ScreenRant for more great videos just like this one. And remember, we are Groot.